So each time you have an episode, you share it on your socials, your Facebooks, your Twitters, your LinkedIn's, anywhere appropriate, with a captivating idea or title or little blurb there with it to entice people to click on it and listen. Um, Another great way to do it is to become a guest on other people's shows. Find somebody who is looking for guests that speak on what you speak on, and that's one of the services we offer is a podcast guesting services where we can help you find podcasts that are looking for guests like you. Um, and then they will usually do a swap. If you have a show, they'll say, "Hey, can I be on your show?" If it doesn't fit, it doesn't fit. But and at the very least, you can cross promote with other shows. You may have similar audiences and agree to do a promotion swap where I'll record a 30-second blurb about my show, you record a 30-second blurb about yours, and we'll play them in each. And then the rest is traditional marketing. Any other place you get people to find out about anything is advertising. Lots of opportunities there. So Jorge, do you have a podcast?
I don't have
nice
I don't have it structured. I do a lot of live videos.
Right. How long are they usually?
It varies.
But are you talking 2 minutes or are you talking an hour?
No, I go about 10 minutes, 15 minutes.
Perfect. Yeah, that what a lot of people do when they do live video, whether it's Riverside or Zoom or Facebook, live, they pull that audio and then distribute that as a podcast, an audio podcast too, because the audio only converts 4 times better than video. So you might as well get in front of that audience.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
What are some ways to recapture the audience that does listen? Let's say they download, they listen, or do the platforms only get that privilege?
Well, you can do that with calls to action, where you can find ways to engage with your audience by saying, "Hey, go here, fill out this form, and get a free XYZ, a report on something." Or, we have a limited group that because you're a listener, go here and sign up, and you get insider stuff that somebody else doesn't have access to. So that's one way. Because you're right, we don't get their emails, we don't get their phone numbers, we don't get any of that contact info without getting them to volunteer that.
Oh, yeah, the platforms get it and keep it to themselves.
Yeah, exactly. Now they'll sell it to you.
Yeah, they will.
So, as International Podcast Day, this is supposed to be a big event. So, what's going on around the world?
Probably a lot of these little things like this. What has traditionally happened in the past on International Podcast Day, which has only been a thing for a very short while, really, people have put out a special episode for that day where it's like, "Hey, International Podcast Day," and they kind of review what's happened on their show and talk about new things coming up. It really hasn't been a big event, we're trying to make it more of an event. I'm sure somebody eventually will hold a big podcast convention on that day. But right now, there's 4 or 5 big ones, and they're nowhere near International Podcast Day for some reason.
Probably don't know.
Right. Yeah, that's probably a lot of it.
Yep. Huh.
It's kind of like networking day, I guess. You know, B and I started that years ago, and now it's spread all over the world, and everything from a small networking group to a district are holding events during networking week, actually, rather than just a day.
And when is that? Because I've never heard of that.
Happens in February. And it's been going on for, I guess as long as I was involved with BNI.
Yeah.
A long time.
I'm just trying to think in what ways can we get our fan base, our listeners, our loyal people excited about podcast day, like just get them involved, because I think you would think the goal would be to increase awareness and listenership of podcasts.
Right. Yeah, once you get them into an event like this, you can promote cool things, but you're right. And how do you get them interested? Because there are these websites that have whatever day, National Hot Dog Day, National Chocolate Chip Cookie Day, and nobody does anything about those days.
Not even the platforms like Amazon, nobody, iTunes, no one does anything.
I mean, Amazon does Prime Day, because they're selling.
They just forgot about podcasts, huh?
Right.
They don't realize the potential.
Yeah.
That's kind of frightening, actually.
Yeah.
Very frightening.
Well, they have added it to their stuff as far as the ability to listen to podcasts.
Yeah.
On Audible now, but you're right, they're not promoting it.
Yeah, I've listened to podcasts, but usually what drives me to listen to it is, I needed more information about a company, or I just wanted to learn more about them.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe companies can promote their podcast better. I don't know.
Yeah, they definitely can. They can do it better, that's for sure.
I mean, for the most part, they're free, but you would think even the paid podcast subscriptions, they would have something like maybe free listening free subscriptions if you join us on podcast day, and then maybe they get a trial subscription or something.
Sure.
You would think they'd be bigger because the potential and the revenue's there. It's just being spent everywhere else.
Right.
What percent of podcasts would you say are actually monetized? Podcasts you have to pay for.
Well, there's 2 different questions there, because there's a lot of podcasts that are monetized without a subscription. Apple iTunes and Spotify have added the ability to put your podcast behind a paywall, but they even say that's a very small percentage, like 10 to 12%.
Yeah, I thought it'd be small.
Put it behind a paywall, because the real power of podcasting is, I'm a normal person and I can reach people.
Right.
So why do I want to hide behind something? I get it for the money. If if you've got a huge following already, that you would want to put it subscription based, just to take advantage of the fact that you can ask for money. But
I wonder if they would share with you the heavy users, like the demographics of the heavy users of podcasts.
I've got several stats. There's a lot of studies that come out all the time about podcasting, and I need to send more of those to you. But yeah, there are some serious players, and their demographics are skewed different than the casual podcast listener, for sure.
Not so much that, but just more of the psychographics of, like, the type of person that maybe all they listen to is podcasts, or all they listen to is satellite radio, or all they listen to is Sirius XM, for example. Me, I'll turn on Sirius XM for now. I cancel my subscription, but but yeah, but like there are people out there that's all they exclusively listen to. I think those are going to be your best people to model after.
Yeah, no, I agree. That makes sense. It's funny, a stat I heard about Sirius was that that a huge percentage of their audience are people who got it for free for a year with a new vehicle.
Yeah.
But the I guess dwindling of that audience is pretty dramatic. As soon as the free wears off, they'll pay a few months, and that's about it.
Yeah, I renewed over and over for years.
Hmm.
So I would be one of those people. You got to find those people.
You're a loyal customer, yeah.
Yeah, the loyal customers, they're going to be our best predictors, you know?
Yeah, for sure.
Interesting.
So who specifically do you go after for the podcast prospect? Can you narrow it down to specific industries or
Well, are you saying to create a podcast or to listen to a podcast?
to create?
Okay, a customer that we would help
that you or Renee would be looking for.
Yeah.
Oh, like advertising customers.
Yeah, she'd be more interested in the advertising. So that's another question, but I'll answer both of those.
Okay.
On the as far as because she could sell this too, our ability to create podcasts for people and do all the heavy lifting. One of the, I guess, areas that do podcasting a lot are personal coaches and
okay,
health coaches and all these gurus that are out there. They use it to build their brand, to build their following, so that they can sell courses, they can sell books, they can sell get-togethers, they can monetize that way. Another, I guess, segment, we do a lot with nonprofits right now, and that's because I kind of fell into that.
Hmm.
And so I don't think there's a whole lot of companies like mine who are serving nonprofits, because they're like jumping all over it, because it can be a way to generate revenue for the nonprofit by selling those ad spots in there. So we've had great luck with that. It's a pretty easy sale when I go to a nonprofit and say, look, I've got a great low cost way to get started in podcasting that can quickly become one of the major revenue sources for your nonprofit. And, the very first one I did was for the Texas High School Football Hall of Fame in Waco. And their big fundraiser for the year was this banquet that they have at Baylor University, where they bring in the new inductees and they get them to sign footballs and hats and auction those off, and have a stadium full of guests there that are eating a dinner that they paid to get, and then that was their biggest fundraiser. We launched this podcast, and we sent an email out to their email list, which they had a very good email list, and we said, we're looking for sponsors for the podcast to help promote. It became their biggest fundraiser. It makes more than the banquet does. And it sold out in 2 days, which tells me, wow, we should have charged more.
Boy.
Yeah.
You actually gave me an idea when I was listening to your fact-finding call with your prospective customer that you shared with me, the video.
Yeah.
And there are companies that just are still sending newsletters, they would be like your prime target for selling a podcast show, just to bring them into the new age and new of technology, the new way that people are listening. You and your customers said it, but I don't know if it registered like, wait a minute, you're not the only company out there. Probably millions of thousands of companies, are in that same situation where they try to have engaging content on their website, but people aren't staying on the website and engaging in it.
Yeah.
Maybe converting to podcasts might be the way to go for a lot of companies.
Yeah, and that's the beauty of podcasts is, if I have engaging stuff on my website, people still have to come to it.
Mm-hmm.
But if I create an engaging piece of audio, post it on my website, big deal. They can come to it, but it also shows up automatically on their cell phone. That's huge.
That's pretty cool.
And then, yeah, as far as advertisers, this is something Renee and I have spoken about. It really comes down to who wants to reach that audience, which is why we try to get demographic information about the audience. Because, Gail, the show that you're a host of, or the TSEC, the
Right.
Seniors Concierge, that is a prime audience for the advertisers you've been reaching, because the people who listen to that show for information, they need all those services.
It's amazing. The last several groups that I've talked with, I've asked the question, how many of you have listened to a podcast? And all the hands go up.
Yeah.
And then I ask, how many of you are doing podcasts? And one group, there were no hands, and another group, there were just, I think, 2 hands that went up. So it is the best kept secret that. But the folks that, for instance, at Senior Estate Concierge, the folks that we're doing the podcast for there are very definitely prospects for doing podcasts for their own companies.
Yeah.
And so that could build into something.
And
from that
the
standpoint.
third question in that scenario would be, okay, and now how many of you are advertising in podcasts?
Good idea. Good idea.
Because the return is so good right now.
Yeah. Well, actually, that is my third question, because after I ask those first 2, then I tell them how they can be an advertiser.
Yeah. I love it.
How do you manage to create content for your podcast?
Before you start it, you have a plan. You kind of come up with the overall 30,000 foot view. This is what I want to deliver to the world. This is the message. And then you can sit down and ideate with a scratch pad, a white erase board, whatever you want, or ChatGPT or something like that, and look for ideas. And you'll find they're pretty limitless. They really are. So everybody gets scared I won't have enough content, but it seems like every interview I do, I come up with 3 more show ideas. Every time I go to a networking meeting, I come up with several more show ideas that relate to my subject matter. So I don't think that's real hard, but again, that's one of the things that we do that is free, which is our pre-launch strategy session. And in that, we kind of analyze your business model, what your goals are, and we talk about, what kind of show you should have, how often you should put it out, the duration or the length of the show, and then talk about ideas for subjects. So that's one of the things we do first when dealing with a company. and we do it for free because we know those are the scary parts for people is I don't know anything about it. What should I know?
So you mentioned that the registration is kind of the first phase for the podcast in iTunes and Spotify. And are those registrations free?
Yes, they're free. They're not necessarily easy. uh, once you've done it millions of times, like we have, it's easy. That's why we take care of that in part of the launch. Is we'll go connect it with iTunes. We'll connect it with Spotify, with all the other places in the world like that. Looks like we have another longtime podcaster coming on right now, Jennifer Navarrete. She is just one of the exceptional podcasters in the world right now.
Thank you, Chris. This is amazing. I didn't know that you were doing this, but of course you would be doing this to celebrate International Podcast Day. So just thought I'd jump in and listen in and soak up that podcasting goodness.
I love it. I love it. Yeah, she did a, what was the name of that PodCamp? Was it PodCamp?
Yeah, PodCamp San Antonio.
Yeah, she's in San Antonio. And if you could, tell people about your podcast and your podcast journey.
Right now, I only podcast once a year during National Podcast Post Month, which is celebrating its 17th year this year, November 1st to November 30th, 30 podcast episodes in 30 days. And it's this global challenge that started 3 days before in 2007 when I heard about NaNoWriMo and thought, ooh, is there one for podcasting? And when there wasn't, I decided to create it. And so here we are 17 years later, and I'm having as much fun now as I did back then.
Yeah, and that's a great time for somebody to jump into podcasting because, like you said, it's a podcast episode a day for the entire month, which is pretty impressive.
Yeah, fail fast, get good. You ain't got time to worry about a bad episode because you got another one coming up, and it'll fast track your learning, and it's for first time podcasters who have never done it, and it's for seasoned podcasters who want to experiment on something new show idea, new tech, new tools, and because everybody's experimenting, it's really a lot of fun, and because we do it in a community base with where we grab everybody's individual feeds and turn them into the mega feed. Then you just subscribe to the mega feed and you get everybody's shows. And during the month, it's hard to keep up. So having the single feed makes it easy. And it's also kind of like you never know what's popping up next in your earbuds. It's a surprise.
Nice.
Jennifer,
go ahead, Gail.
Yeah, I was just going to ask Jennifer, is this nationwide or worldwide or?
It's worldwide.
It's worldwide.
I mean, it's called national. But I modeled it after NaNoWriMo, which is National Novel Writing Month. And so there was a NAV Pomo for video bloggers and a NAV Pomo. So it isn't that I call it a nation of podcasters, and we live all over the world.
Excellent. And Jennifer, I'm usually very bad about not doing it because that time of year I'm doing high school football shows to the tune of 15 a week already. So now if I could just point my RSS to you, I would be happy to do that. I'm not going to do another show during that time though.
Yeah, some of the fun experiments that we've done, that I've done, is that, on X, or formerly Twitter, they have this thing called Spaces. And there's another app called Zealous.one. And one year I thought, could I take the Spaces, put it in Zealous, take the RSS feed from Zealous and use that as my feed? And I totally could. And so that was a super low lift because it's just on my phone. And I did all 30 episodes that way as my experiment to see if I could do it. And I could. And so, again, it's an opportunity to experiment with tools, with show ideas, with concepts. Since I'm the founder, I'm also the host of the official podcast. So my podcast is typically guiding the other podcasters through that 30-day process because it's an emotional roller coaster. And I'm not only just the founder and organizer, but I'm also participating. So I'm going on that emotional roller coaster with you. No matter how many years I've done it, it's still an emotional roller coaster.
How easy is the entry for, say, a small business, like from anywhere from me just wanting to get on and talk crap and have someone listen to a company wanting to convert their current online audience into audio, all the way to these big time paying all this money to all these platforms. Like, can I just record audio and put it on my website?
Yeah, I mean, I think Chris is probably the person that could really guide you, but I'll add to that. Before you get started, know that podcasting sounds like a romantic idea, and it is, but it's also a whole heck of a lot of work. So whatever you're going to do, you need to know that what equals success for you. In the business world, they call it KPI, right? Key performance indicator. But really what that means is what equals success. And it typically isn't one thing. It's maybe phase one. I just want to get my brand out there. I want to increase awareness. And that's a really smart thing to do in audio. And here's why. When we were all in school, there's kids who learned by reading, there's kids who learned by hearing, there's kids who learn by doing. And that doesn't change because we're adults. So if you only create content one way, you're limiting your audience. So by creating content across many ways, you're increasing the amount of people who are exposed to your unique spice and flavor. And that's what we're doing, right? We're creating content to attract people to our unique spice and flavor. At the same time, we're repelling folks who don't like our spice and flavor, which is perfect because we're not wasting our time on them and they're not wasting our time on us. So you want people to lean in. So what I would say is know what success equals for you, whether some people just do it for the joy of doing it. And that's perfectly okay. You don't have to make money. If you could just say, I want to get my voice out there. I have these ideas and I'd like to do it. My very first podcast was with my sister and we did a show called The Morning Brewcast. We drank coffee and talked about coffee and laughed. We didn't do it because first of all, there was no industry in 2005, but we weren't doing it to make money. We were just doing it because it was like, ooh, you mean we can record something, put it up on the web and no one can stop us? And it was like, we didn't need anybody's permission. Before, if you wanted to be read, you needed to be in the newspaper or in a magazine. And if you wanted to be heard, you needed to be on the radio. If you wanted to be seen, you need to be on television or a movie. But with this, quote, new media, you didn't need to ask anyone's permission. And if you did feel like you needed to ask someone's permission, you could go stand in front of the mirror and just ask yourself. And it was so powerful. And that's where Chris and I come from those early days of like, ooh, no one can stop us. And that is still true to this day, because as much as people are getting censored and deplatformed and demonetized for whatever reason, things that were acceptable years ago are no longer acceptable. Things that are acceptable now will not be acceptable in the future. You want to control and own your voice and your content. And RSS, really simple syndication, whether it's a blog, a video, or audio, is 100% yours if it's on your website with your domain. No one can take it from you. And there's such freedom and power in that. So to answer your question, what can you do? Yeah, you could just shoot the shit like my sister and I were doing, drinking coffee. I mean, that we had so much fun doing that. And then now I'm a podcast producer like Chris is, working with clients. And I host this annual event. And at every level, it just depends on what equals success to me. So for you doing it just to shoot the shit and just to share your voice, your thoughts, that is success right there. If you get a handful of people who lean in and jam those earbuds in, that's success. We don't need Joe Rogan numbers for it to be a success. Only we get to decide what that is. And then going to the business side, what I would recommend, and I'm sure Chris can back this up, is when you're looking at taking a business's existing content, whether it's website, social media, whatever, I always talk about looking at your greatest hits. So take a look at the blog posts, the articles, the website pages, the social posts that generated the most interaction, the most views, the most everything, because your audience has already self-selected and said, that's something that's important to us. So look at your greatest hits and then create a standalone series, 6-part series, 10-part series on something that's evergreen within your business. Because when it's evergreen within your business, if 6 episodes in, you're like, I hate podcasting. It takes a lot of time. It's a lot of work. I thought I'd have fun. It's not fun. It doesn't matter that you're going to quit after 6 episodes because you announced to the world you were doing a 6-part standalone series on these 6 topics. And no matter what, those are evergreen and they will represent your brand well and you well always, whether you ever do another audio or not. Now, let's say that you do like it and you're like, this is fun. It's work, but it's fun and I enjoy it. And I'm getting some good response because after all, you started out with your greatest hits. Then you could say, and now we're kicking off season 2. Or you could just always do standalone, 10-part series, 5-part series, whatever, as your audio body of work. Because of the fact is, let's go back to the fact that everybody consumes content differently. I have a son who if it's a blog post, it's a wall of text to him. He's not going to read it. But if it's a video, he'll watch it. I have a sister who, if it's a video, she's not going to look at it. She wants the blog post so she can skim and catch the information really quickly. In my own household, I have two completely different content consumers, and yet why would I limit anybody who was interested in what I had to say? I wouldn't. So I hope that's helpful.
Very, thank you.
I love that, and one of the things I love about Jennifer is she's one of the few people like myself who speak passionately about podcasting. Yeah, I mean, you can tell it in her voice.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
The same today as I did in 2005 when I first heard about it. More so because, like Chris, I mean, the thing that drives us is we have experienced the power of podcasting, and we look around and it's like, how come more people don't know about this? And as much as you think, oh, podcasting's been around a long time. Yeah. But if you compare how many, I think Lipson did a study a couple years back that for every, 100 podcasts, 100 blogs, there was like 10 podcasts. And I don't hear anybody running around saying there's too many blogs. No, if you have something to say it. So there actually isn't an overwhelming amount of podcasters out there. But again, you have to decide what success is. If you get a handful of people in the room with you and you have meaningful conversation and they're loyal and they come back and they take action, that is so much more powerful than just someone, having 1 million followers and you feel like you're speaking to the void because no one engages with you. So I much rather have a small, tight-knit community where they're rabid fans about what we do than a very large one. Now, granted, if you can have both, well, heck yeah, more power to you.
I have a question. What are your thoughts on, you brought up, in the future, there may or may not be things we can say. I know there's a lot of talk in the future about robots taking over and taking jobs. And where do you see, I don't know, the robots' role in podcasts or even artificial intelligence or automation of the show, just anything, like what overall, where do you see it fitting in, or what do you think what the impact will be?
I'm sure Chris will back me up on this. We're already using AI in production.
Yeah.
We're using the things that used to take us so much longer in post-production, because post-production is what will kill you. If you can get comfortable with live and get comfortable with the ums and the ahs and the stumbles, I highly recommend live, because post-production, 3 a.m. editing sessions are no fun at all. However, because I do work for clients and those need to be, white label, polished things that represent their brand. And well, I do have to do post-production for them. And so the AI tools are amazing to kind of clean up the audio and to help you take the transcript and turn that into show notes. Now, granted, you're the human doing all this stuff and you're never going to just copy paste. Don't ever do that, right? We know this by now. But it does fast track some of that post-production, which is really helpful. So I will say that if you're not listening to Marketing Over AI or the AI podcast with Paul Raitzer and Mike Kaputz, they run the Marketing AI, MACON, the Marketing AI Conference, and they have a Marketing AI Institute. They have free trainings, they have paid trainings, they have a pilot thing, they have all kinds of things. I look at the AI stuff, and just like podcasting, just like social media, there's a lot of snake oil out there. So much snake oil. Please be careful on who you listen to. I always tell folks the proof is in the pudding. The cool thing about all of us being on social is that you can go do a social media background check on someone and see if they showed up 5 minutes ago and claimed to be an expert, if they've been around for a bit and have the bruises and the scars to show it and are giving you their thing. Mike Kaputz and Paul Raitzer are those guys. They were doing the MACON for like 5-6 years before November 2022. So that's not like they just showed up brand new. They were into it already. And so they've got the premier conference and all that stuff. So no one's going to know everything. None of us. We have no idea. And which is a really nice thing, because even the experts are like, this is overwhelming for us. Like, we can't keep up. So if you can't keep up and the experts can't keep up, we're all learning at the same time. Even though they may know more, it's moving too quickly for any one person to keep up with it. So I would say, figure out how it works for you. And that's the key, right? Social media should work for you. Podcasting should work for you. Just because somebody else does it this way, if that's not the way that makes sense for you, and you're trying to emulate that, but it's a struggle, then find what works for you. And I will say that anyone who's not using AI or learning AI in whatever capacity works for them, they're going to get left behind. That's all there is to it. I mean, Chris and I can talk about how when social media first came out, I'm sure you have war stories like I do, Chris, that I would go to business mixers and talk about podcasting and blogging and Facebook and all of these things. And people would look at me like I was crazy, like I was speaking Klingon, because what was I doing talking about the thing that's, quote, for the kids at a business event?
Yeah, and I also want to mention, Renee, you had asked where AI was going and would it be taking over the creation of podcasts. And yes, as Jennifer pointed out, we're using it heavily post production, but there are some that are using it in the actual production. I do one show where my client, he's a public speaker. He's a professor. He's a pastor. He speaks all day, every day, and he says, "I just don't want to do more talking." So we have used AI to clone his voice. He sends a script. It creates the show. His wife swears it is him. It has his pauses, his chuckles, everything is spot on. So that will happen, but there's still going to be a lot of people who just put generic AI stuff out there and put it out as audio because audio converts. As you know, we talked earlier in the year that right now podcast hosts are the most trusted media in the country, and that's because we're real. The more people who use AI to create podcast content, that's going to drop. And then they're going to pay attention to, okay, who out of these AI people, or not AI people, podcast people, are real? And they'll, again, figure that out. So I always tell everybody, look, every episode, tens of thousands of episodes, ended every single one by saying, keep it real. And that's the secret. That's the secret sauce in podcasting.
I agree.
That's all my questions.
Well, there were good ones.
Well, we've actually used up 3/4 of the hour here, which is
Yeah,
and
I figure I knew it would go fast. That's for sure.
and it was fact filled.
And like anybody who's wise when it comes to content these days, we'll repurpose this. I'll pull the audio, I'll pull the video, I'll create clips. You mentioned AI, and we talked about it in post production. We all the time use a service called Opus Clips to take video and convert it into digestible little clips for reels and TikToks and places like that, shorts for YouTube, and it does a great job. Pulls out. You don't tell it what to do. You send it the video. It determines, hey, this is a good clip, and it'll tell you why it's a good clip. Whether it has a clear call to action, whether it's understandable. It'll give you a grade on that. It will do the closed captioning, and it will even connect to your social media. And you can click which social media platforms you want to publish that clip to. So there's no extra work and a whole lot more reach.
Jennifer, before you came on, I had asked about what are some ways to generate more excitement around podcasts, maybe even getting listeners or the heavy users involved. Is that a topic that's been covered? Because podcasting has been around a while, but as our group has pointed out, there doesn't seem to be a lot of support given as there are to other mediums.
Right. I just got a call. Hold, please. I would love to answer that. Give me just a moment.
Nice. Yeah, I met Jennifer shortly after beginning podcasting. She held something called Pod Camp. I think it was in 05, 06, somewhere in there. and she invited me to come down and be a speaker at the event, and we've been fast friends ever since. So she's gold. She's amazing at what she does.
Yeah, Chris was, and his team sponsored the 2007 PodCamp. That was the first PodCamp in Texas. And, hang out with Chris. He's going to steer you right. To answer your question, it goes back to what is your goal, right? And what equals success. And I would go back to in phase one, it's just, trying to find your tribe, trying to find your people. One of the ways that a lot of folks attract attention is joining communities. Like in a case of NaPod Pomo, we take everybody's feeds and turn it into mega feeds. So you get some folks who will listen after the fact, and it does drive attention. And Stephanie Fuccio does experiments every single time. She started doing NaPod Pomo about 5 years ago. And in every single year at the end, she says, here's my stats before NaPod Pomo and during NaPod Pomo and after. And of course, there's always a bump. And she retains some of that bump. It's not going to be as intense because we're not going in a big, huge challenge. But some people discover her and they stay and it's sticky. So I think something like that. But also, I don't know if you're doing an interview show, but interviews is another way to do it. The challenge with interviews is that not everybody that you interview is going to share your content. So as Chris was mentioning, the Opus Clip or Descript or Headliner or any number of AI tools that are out there where you can take your audio and turn it into video, or take a video if you're doing a video show and clip it down and make it with the little captions and make it, catchy. Think about what your evergreen or what your core message when you're interviewing someone, because I would slant at least a few of those questions you're going to ask them, knowing that you're going to take that answer and turn it into social media content that could drive people back to your episode. So think about having them do bite-sized nuggets. And sometimes, I will tell you what I've done is if we have a guest who, sometimes you get a guest who's not media savvy, and so they don't really know how to do the bite-sized nuggets. So what we will say is, we'd love to do some social media content. And so we're just going to ask you to look at the camera lens and answer this question. And so that way it's just, and we're keeping it succinct. And so then that, okay, if they weren't really savvy camera-wise, people can be experts and knowledgeable, but not be comfortable on camera or on audio. So, but you can ask them, I'm going to ask you these 3 things. And, if you can just answer succinctly, because these are 30 seconds to a minute, then that kind of puts them in the right frame of mind. And then you're already creating some of those social posts. But here's the way I would look at podcasting or blogging or video or social or anything that you're going to do. If you have a mission and message to share with the world, you're going to talk about it anyway. You're going to talk about it to your friends. You're going to talk about it at church. You're going to talk about it to your family. You're going to talk about it anyway. So why not record it and put it out for the entire globe to self-select in and see what happens?
I love that. I may pull that clip and send that out.
Right.
Do it. I'm sorry I'm not on camera. So I use a Mac Studio to do production, and the studio is just like a block. It doesn't actually have a camera. So when I'm doing production, I've got 3 screens and this thing, but I do have a studio set that has a camera with the mini, but I'm not sitting there. I just happened, like I said, to see that you were doing this, Chris, and I'm like, it's fun. Let me go join.
Nice.
I still have to figure out how to put my background on Zoom.
It's pretty simple. Just right click on your picture.
Yeah. Well, the real thing is, I just realized where my camera was on this PC, and I've had this PC for years. And for years, I thought I didn't have a camera on it, and then I was moving it from one area to another, and it popped out, and I was like, I have a camera on this thing. So we can start there. It's baby steps.
Nice.
So I was really shocked that it popped on camera. So I was like, oh wait, I'm on camera. This is the first time being on camera on this PC, actually.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
See, Gail changed his
That's
background
that's
to
how you
our
change your background right there.
Yeah, I'm getting ready to change mine now. I don't have any saved. Okay. Yep. That's because again, this is my first time using the camera on. I didn't even think it would turn on, actually. I just thought I would join you. And then I said, let me see if it'll turn on. I pushed it up and I popped up on the screen. So here we are.
Sure enough. I love it.
We'll figure it out.
Yeah. Yeah, and Gail, he popped the background on our fire meetings, which is our Friday Inspire Review and Excel meeting. And that's on our school community. Yeah, that's the one.
There you go.
And this Friday, Gail is actually speaking at it.
Nice.
Very nice.
So it'll be primarily on making connections, networking, those types of things. About 95% of an entrepreneur's new business comes from networking. And unfortunately, a good portion of the people involved in attending networking groups and so on are doing it very ineffectively. And so what we'll try to cover on, that's Friday, is that right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the F in fire.
Friday.
Yeah.
And Chris, maybe he can pop up the information on there if you guys want to set in on that. But it'll be a lot of fun. Chris did an excellent one. We're doing one every 2 weeks, I guess. And
Yes. Yeah, I'll throw it in the chat now.
all right.
So yeah, every other Friday will be a different subject, and this one we're going over networking and fun stuff. We did AI last time, and not sure what we'll be doing on the one after Gail's, but we'll figure that out. And that school community, by the way, is right now a free community, but that ends when we reach 40 people. There are 36 in there now, so there's only a couple spots left to get it free for life. After that, it's going to have a charge.
And I think, Jorge, you're a part of that, aren't you?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah, Jorge is, and Renee is as well. Yeah. But I don't think Jennifer is.
Oh, be a good move, Jennifer.
Yeah. No, I mean, so are you all local, or is this? I just, like I said, I saw Chris's post and I was like, oh, let me pop over here.
Now, let me see. Gail's in Houston. I think most of y'all are in the Houston area. I'm not.
Not anymore.
Not anymore, right?
Yeah, I moved out to the country a little over 2 years ago.
What
So I'm
part?
outside, between San Antonio and Bandera.
Oh, okay.
You know,
Nice.
Bandera, the cowboy capital of the world, according to the Guinness Book of World Records, I guess. And so I moved out over here, like, you know, a town of like 5,000 people from San Antonio, which is the 7th largest. And I did live in Houston for many years, which is the 4th largest.
Yeah.
And I didn't know if I would like small town living, and I absolutely love it.
Yeah.
And I'm guessing you experienced that too, Chris.
Well, yeah. I mean, I grew up in small towns, so and after living in Houston, Dallas, Austin, Wimberley, all over the place, we built out in the country. And when I say out in the country, I mean I'm 30 minutes from a small town.
You're
only
like, the small town is your big town.
right. The only caveat was, look, we're only going to buy this land. We're only going to build this home if we can get high-speed internet out here, because that is my life. And they just so happened to be bringing it out like 6 months after we got here. And they told me they're bringing it out in 6 months because the owner of the company lived out here.
Ah,
And I
smart.
said, bring it by my house.
Yeah. We
Hey,
have
neighbor.
high speed as well, which was we have fiber out here in the
Yeah, us
sticks,
too. Yeah,
and it's like, wow, this is amazing
yeah, it's a game changer.
for sure.
I'm right in the middle of, well, the west side of Houston, and we don't have fiber yet.
Isn't it crazy?
Well, I mean, no, Starlink's pretty fast too. So we got Starlink as well, just as a backup,
Mhm.
and it actually works pretty well. It's surprisingly fast. I'm like,
I was always wondering how fast it was.
it is. It's surprisingly fast. And so what we do is we use the Speedify app, and so you can bundle. What did they? I don't call it bundle. It's some word where you're using both, so that way if one drops off, the other one picks up. Because I do client recordings from here, and I can't be dropping off when we're doing recordings, so that works really well.
Nice, nice. That's one of the other things I love about Jennifer. You know, I'm a nerd. I'm a tech nerd. I love the technology. I love things like RSS feeds and connecting this to that and seeing ways we can leverage what it is we've done. And she's the same way, which is rare, for me to find somebody who is that way.
Yeah. I think that's what was so nice in those early days is that there were so few of us early adopter geeks that it was easy to find everyone else because there was so few of us. And then we've just stayed connected over the years, which has been nice.
I know. Cool. We've got about 3 minutes left. Jorge, do you have any more questions or anybody?
Well, I guess I do. If we got these things going on around the world, is somebody putting them together? Do you send the recording somewhere, Chris, that will be amalgamated here?
Which things are you talking like this?
I'm talking about this day and the events like we are having.
Yeah, what we will be doing is we'll be recording them because they're all on Zoom, and then we'll be archiving them somewhere. Still trying to work with the structure of the school community because in that community you want to incentivize people to be engaged, and so you release things depending on what level they've reached. So we may put those at a higher level after you've engaged a little bit, then you have access to all the archives.
Great idea.
Yeah, I love the gamification that school has. Gives people incentives to click like and write a comment.
Yeah.
Well, I want to thank everybody for being here. Those who are live, those who are watching us on some of the other streams where we're sharing it, and those who will watch it in the future. Happy International Podcast Day. And gosh, if you need anything, feel free to reach out to me. You can see my name spelled Doelle, which sure that all that means is that I'm easy to find on the internet. It's a weird, so feel free to reach out. Any socials, you'll find me.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks a lot,
Thanks, Chris.
folks.
Thanks, everybody. Nice to meet everyone.
Nice to meet you.
Take care.
Bye.